All right, guys, we're back live for our Big 12 Conference Football Preview. This is Mark Lawrence, along with our cast of experts, Jim Feist, the legend himself from Las Vegas, Andy Isco from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas, and our producer extraordinaire, Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network. I welcome you to the show. Sit back and get ready. Get your pens and pencils ready because we've got a lot of good winning information that we want to share with you on the show here today. First of all, I want to remind everybody that our show is now part of the ProLine TV network. You can watch our show, other shows that are being produced each and every day here on ProLine TV. Also, the Against the Spread podcast. Mark that down. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button down below. We really appreciate you doing just that. And with that, I want to welcome into our show Jim Feist from Las Vegas. Jim, how's everything going in Vegas these days?
Everything's very hot. Yesterday it was 116. Today it's going to be 116. It's pretty damn hot, uncomfortable. But having been here for half a century, I'm used to it.
Andy?
I know Andy's feeling the same thing.
Yeah, I get used to it. I tolerate it. Doesn't mean I like it or enjoy it, but I stay indoors where it's nice and the air conditioning is working, so it's fine. We sort of get used to it. In fact, I was just texting someone, a different part of the country where they are. Where they have the heat but the humidity as well, that I just realized we have temperatures where our daily highs are the 90s well into October. And in fact, I think the average high temperature, even in the month of September, the first month of football, is 95 degrees. So here we are. We're, July 10th right now. So that's a good 2.5 months before we get even into early October. So the heat's here to stay, and so am I.
Mark and Greg have heat as well, but they both have probably 90, 95 degree humidity.
Oh, don't mix me with Mark.
Well,
no, Mark's in South Florida.
You're both on the East Coast.
Oh, that's a big difference, though, right, Mark?
I'll go all in on the humidity. I think I've got everybody covered.
Yes.
Yeah, Greg, you're in the higher elevations in Carolina, correct?
Correct. West Coast, right by Asheville.
Where hurricanes are never supposed to hit. Is that correct?
No, that's right. And when they do, it's not good. So,
by the way, before we go on, I just want to say a prayer for all the people in Texas and New Mexico. That is horrendous what's going on down there. Horrendous.
What a disaster. My hearts are out to their families as well, Jim. I was reading about it in depth this morning.
Tragic.
Oh, unbelievable. It was just incredible how it all happened and how it went down. And like Jim and everybody else here on the panel here, our hearts are out to everybody, families, friends, and all that who were affected by that horrible flood that hit the state of Texas in that area, that particular area there.
We complain about bad beats.
Yeah,
but I'm telling you that is a life bad beat that even the people, there might be upwards of 300 people die with this, but the devastation to the people that have lost people and the devastation of people that just survive it and lost all their material things,
right?
Memories. I mean,
we don't think about what the people lost, for example, in those California wildfires that were going back with homes burning down and people having to rebuild their lives. And, you don't get a timeout. Daily life goes on, and these people are, sadly burdened with having to basically start over. Mother Nature. We can't do anything about Mother Nature, unfortunately.
No, we can't. But what we can do is talk about the Big 12 football conference this week, and we're going to get into it exactly with that. And since this is a Big 12 show, I want to remind everybody that you can watch the insightful interviews with Oklahoma State that was recorded on Monday and on BYU this Friday on ProLine TV. Those are being done by Greg DePalma, and I believe Jim Feist is co-hosting on those, or is Andy? I'm not sure which, but nonetheless, Jim, okay. It's Oklahoma State earlier this week. You can find that in the platform in the library, and also be recording here also with BYU coming up on Friday.
By the way, Mark, excuse me for a moment, but I have to, first of all, wonderful job on the magazine. I just got my physical copy yesterday, actually, with our good friend Ken Thompson over at one of the local places. But I have to believe Oklahoma State has to be near the top of your mission list this year.
Well, they are. They're one of two teams inside this conference that qualify as a mission team. Real simply put, you had a losing season last year. You were a bowling team each of the 3 previous football seasons. You are then a mission team, and you generally get very good results from those teams. And they had been a bowler 18 times in a row, Andy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
A long time. Mike
Could
Gundy.
you explain, Mark, in more detail, what is a mission team?
So if you had a losing season last year, and then the previous 3 years, you went bowling each year, bowler, 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 losing team. This year, you will be on a mission to get back to a winning record and get to a bowl game this year. It's just that simple. They have a lot to play for, these mission teams, and we're going to talk about 2 of them inside the Big 12 conference here.
I'd like to say as a promo for Mark's work, I know he goes into the dungeon for several months a year, and we never see him, but we know he exists because he's sending stuff out of that dungeon, and then eventually out comes these magazines, and the information in the magazines, and I have to say, I read it every day. I go back to it every day. So I'm telling you, I don't know where the hell you can go get it, but I know you can get a copy online because on his site, and you can go to the bookstore and get one, or magazine stand and get one.
Barnes and Noble nationwide.
If you want to win money, you're going to have to read some stuff and do some work. You know, this is not easy to beat the bookmaker. The bookmaker knows stuff too. But when you read Mark's magazine, or you get the download, what is that, a PDF or something? Is that what they call
PDF
it?
it's called, yes.
Right. You're getting good information that the bookmaker probably is not reading.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, Jim, especially coming from you. And we try to make that information as simple to read as possible in the magazine. It's really laid out really nicely so you can get from team to team and find all the information that you want to look for. Also, just to note that it will be on sale at Barnes & Noble starting July 15th. It's also on sale right now at the Gamblers Book Club in Las Vegas. So look for that. And if you can't find it anywhere, just log on at playbooksports.com. You can order up a copy and we'll get it out to you by priority
by the way,
mail. Yes.
I will mention something, Mark and Jim and Greg, and that there's a lot of information that a lot of people don't even realize is in here, because I know a lot of the book is concentrated on team previews and reviews and historical information for all 32 NFL teams and all, I guess it's 136 now, FBS teams. But there's also some summary pages. For example, historical records in various situations for every NFL quarterback. More importantly to me and for a lot of people, you have got the same thing for every NFL head coach, and I think most, if not all, of the college coaches. And the beauty of that is it's all in one place. So let's say you're looking at Iowa going up against Oklahoma State for whatever reason, Big 10, Big 12, and you want to see, how Kirk Ferentz of Iowa has done historically in certain situations, and how Mike Gundy has done in similar situations. You don't have to go scroll through a whole bunch of pages. It's right there on 1 or 2 pages that cover all the coaches, and that is invaluable information, especially when it comes to, and we talk about it a lot, especially in the NFL, how teams handle bye weeks, off a bye, prior to a bye, etc. And I guess the 2 words that'll come up there, Andy Reid.
Andy Reid's the leader of the pack when that is concerned. No doubt about that, Andy. What Andy's talking about is this here, guys. This is the Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine. You have to put a copy in your hands this football season if you're at all serious about becoming a winner this football season. Do it. You'll do yourself a big favor by doing just that. I want to also remind everybody that Jim Feist's Sunday Night Betting Show is on ProLine TV. He'll go over the early lines analysis and bets. You want to mark that in your calendar. ProLine Pigskin Mondays with Greg and Jim. They'll recap the weekend in football along with the Monday Night Football preview. That's all upcoming. The Jim Feist Handicapping Show at Dom DeMarco's Pizzeria, one of our favorite spots. And I know it's one of Jim's favorite spots because he gets to visit there, eat there, and chum with all the wise guys.
Let me add something to that.
Yes.
People that you've never heard their names, have no idea who they are. They're not in the quote unquote selling picks business. They live here in Las Vegas. Not every winning sports gambler lives in Las Vegas, but we have a lot of them, and Andy knows that because he knows most of them. Yep. But they really win money. I'm talking about winning real money. I mean, I know one guy bets 20, 25,000 a game. He's not had a losing season in 12 years. Another guy he's betting so much money, 50 to 200,000 a game. The book said, I can't give you any more information. I can't let you bet. They hired him. Made $1 million a year not to bet there, but consult with their lines. I'm talking about serious people, and they're on this show we're talking about.
You have to mark that down, guys. It's the Pizza Show with Jim Feist. Will it be every Thursday coming this football season, Jim?
No, we changed. It was going to be Monday. We switched it to Wednesday. Your show is on Thursday.
Okay, we're doing Thursday. Jim's going to be Wednesdays with the Pizza Show. You want to watch that. You'll be able to do just that on Proline TV.
And by the way, more than just the pizza is great food over at Dr. Marcos.
Oh my God, yes.
That's what everybody says. Outstanding food. Jim is also going to be hosting the NFL teaser and NFL alternate lines with Andy Isco, as well as the totals and props with Victor King upcoming on Proline TV. And finally, the Proline Pigskin Fridays with Jim, Greg, and myself. We're going to give our final analysis and picks on the weekend football games and the college and pro football cards. That's a whole lot of information that's going to be coming forth with here on Proline TV. So get ready for what we hope will be a wonderful football season.
One addition, Mark, that we haven't talked too much about.
Yes.
And I basically have just learned this to a great degree and didn't realize how much I was leaving on the table. Betting alternative lines.
Yeah.
It can be very profitable. And I was kind of missing the boat on this until I talked to someone. So if you're betting over 42.5, and whether it's college or pro, it doesn't really, or basketball, it doesn't make any difference. Why not expand your thinking? I mean, not all games end up within 1 or 2 points of what the number is, whether it's point spread or total, but there's probably more deviation on variance in the total. Why not bet over 45.5 or 46.5 and get 3-1?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you're betting $100 over 42.5, why don't you take $50 and go over 45.5?
Yeah, raise the bar, take more back. I like that.
And let's not confuse that with what people say, well, you're betting a bad number. That's not true. Betting a bad number is you're laying 7.5 when the prevailing line around town is 7. Betting an alternate line or not betting when a similar situation when it's not laying a bad number is, let's say the line is 7 and you're laying 9. You're laying 9, but you're not laying the 110. You're getting plus 230 for taking, quote unquote, the worst of it. But the worst of it is being compensated by the fact that you're getting a much better VIG attached. You're getting a positive VIG as opposed to laying a VIG.
Absolute. You must watch these shows that Andy, Victor, and I are going to be doing on this, because you will raise your profit level, your return on investment astronomically. Believe me, I've been doing this 6 decades. All this stuff wasn't available 6 decades ago, but it is now, which is probably why I'm behind the curve on it a little. But we're going to pick up the pace and teach you how to do this.
Well, I like what you said, Jim. You're learning as well as you're going along with this stuff. There's things out there that you were not even aware of that now today I
think we all are.
Yes.
If you stop learning, you got no chance. You have to be learning.
The thing about life is we always reject change.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a normal thing. I like, the good old days were better. Old days were better. That's not always true. Some of the good old days were better. Some of the new days are better. And if you want to stop change, stop having babies, because they find out new things and teach us new things. And we have to be willing to learn from them as well as they should be willing to learn from us. But I'm learning because I love change. I actually enjoy it. And this is what the kids are doing. They're betting props. They're betting alternatives. And I'm saying, what the hell? This makes sense. This actually makes sense.
Hey, well,
we learn through our experiences of years and years. However, we continue to learn because the people who are coming behind us have benefited from our experience and take it even further with developments in modern technology, ways of research, analytics, whatever you want to call it. And they build upon that, and we can learn from what they're doing based upon the experience that they have now gained.
Well, guys, we've got 16 teams inside the Big 12 that we have to get in the next 40 minutes.
2.8 minutes per team.
2.8. Okay. Last year was 2 point. Last week 2.6.
Yeah. So you got a little extra time this week, about another 20 seconds per team. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
We got 16 teams too.
One less team.
Yes. We'll be back here next Wednesday, guys. But before we come back here, I want you to know, and I mentioned that NC State BYU previews are upcoming here on Pro Line.
You mean next Thursday?
Yes, next Thursday. I'm sorry.
Wednesday,
Yeah, next Thursday.
We
But in between now and next Thursday, you've got on the Pro Line TV network a review of Oklahoma State, a review of Duke on Tuesday, Texas on Wednesday. So check in each and every day at Pro Line TV. You're going to walk away knowing a lot more than you did before you logged on. So let's get to it, guys. The Big 12 Conference. And the one thing that jumps out to me, just jumps off the page about the Big 12 Conference this year, is there is a ton of parity inside this conference, to the point that there's no team in this conference that has a season win total of more than 8.5 wins. And we're talking about a Power 4 conference here, but nobody with a season win total of 8.5. I don't know if that's good news or bad news.
By the way, Mark, to that same point, you take a look at the 4 major conferences and the favored teams. Okay, SEC, Texas, plus 300 is the favorite. Clemson, plus 115 is the favorite. Big Ten, Ohio State, plus 225. You got to double that, a little more than double that. In the Big 12, the 2 co-favorites, Arizona State, are plus 500.
Yeah,
that's how parity.
That's exactly what it is. It's all about parity. And the one interesting thing here, guys, as we begin to kick this off, we'll start it out alphabetically and go all the way through. And everything we talk about, or at least what I share with you, the guys will also throw in their nuggets as here as we go along. All comes from that Playbook Football Preview Guide magazine. It's a bit of the write-ups that we did on each and every team. I'm going to talk about Arizona first, the Wildcats that come in here this year. 17 returning starters, a 5.5 season win total. And they should get off to a pretty good start most of the season, because 5 of their first 6 games are at home for the Arizona Wildcats this football season here. They lost McMillan, their star wide receiver, to the National Football League draft. That's a huge, huge loss for this football program. They're going to have to make that up. Any thoughts you guys might have on Arizona this year? I think they may go backwards this year. That was a big, big loss to lose McMillan to the draft.
Well, as good as McMillan was, the problem is they didn't play very well. They lost their head coach, who dumped them for Washington, left them dry, which is really sad, because I think they were building something nice at Arizona. Jed Fish was doing a good job. He gets the Washington job. And Brett Brennan, who we like, he did a really good job at San Jose State. And I think he'll do a good job here, but he was he brought in a little late. And so they had a really disappointing season last season. The good news is the quarterback did return, Noah Fafita, and he has a really bright future. So a lot of people thought he'd leave, transfer out. But that's the kid to keep an eye on, is the quarterback at Arizona, and give Brett Brennan a chance, because he's done a good job rebuilding programs before.
Well, this will be his second season with Arizona. He brings in 53 new players into the program this year, 25 by way of transfer. So there's going to be a whole new look to this Arizona football team. We'll see exactly how it all shakes out. Arizona State, I want to move on to next. And
Arizona, by the way, opens at home, 12.5 point favorite over Hawaii. The total went from 52.5 to 54.
Betting it over.
And you mentioned the 5.5 season win total. If you like the over, as I do, it's plus VIG. I think it's plus 120 to plus 130 in that range. And just taking a look, that very favorable early start to the season. I'm just going to make a general comment about the Big 12. Last year, remember, you had all those new teams coming in, so there was a lot of learning curve, especially the teams with the new coaches and all that. And I think that last year, some of the teams, and we talked before we went on about a team like Oklahoma State being a mission team, had a horrible year last year. I think a lot of the existing teams in the Big 12 said, you're coming into our conference. We are still the kings of our conference. And, oh, by the way, they may have taken the teams like the Arizona teams a little bit lightly. And at the same time, they also said, hey, this is our year now to win the Big 12, because Texas and Oklahoma are gone. And it didn't pan out for a number of the teams that thought were going to be in contention. I think we're going to see some of the teams that struggled more than expected last year will bounce back this year.
Well, the kissing cousin for Arizona, guys, this obviously is Arizona State. Had a big season last year. And in fact, they improved 8 net games on the season last year. That was the biggest win improvement from any FBS team last year, from a 3-win season that they did last year. It was so big, in fact, they were picked to finish 16th dead last in the Pac-12 last year, and they won the conference. And because they did that, the Pac-12 this year, the Big 12 this year decided we are not going to have a preseason poll this year. They were red-faced with all the egg they had in their face from what Arizona State did last year. So there is no preseason poll amongst the Big 12 football
cowards.
teams.
That's a very cowardly thing to. It's like, hey, it's okay to be wrong as long as you're not wrong every year.
Every
So
year.
You have years like that.
If you don't succeed at first, quit.
That's what they're doing. That's what they did. But I'm going to say this about Arizona State. They're the number 2 ranked team in overall returning production this year. So everything they did last year is coming up roses this year because their 1 and 2, 3 deeps are back in force this year for this football team. Now, can they match what they did
By the way,
last
excuse me,
football
just a
season?
moment. I found that very interesting because of the great back that they lost in Scadaboo, who had to contribute a lot to that production. Yet even with that, and I think we talked a little bit about it last year. This returning production, I believe you mentioned, also was it Bill Connolly? I think you mentioned does it?
Yes.
Who's had the ESPN affiliation, includes returning production of projected starters who played at different schools last year.
What is their first game, Mark?
Oh, they're not playing
Northern
anybody
Arizona.
worthwhile. Yeah.
Northern Arizona.
Week 2, though, they're at Mississippi State, so that's a good opponent. But yeah, week 1, they're playing one of those weak schools. Unfortunately, keep in mind Sam Levitt's back, and that's important. That's the quarterback, and also Jordan Tyson is a very good receiver. He was part of the whole rebuild by Arizona State last year. Unfortunately, he got hurt. Was not available late in the year, was not available in the playoff game. And that was very disappointing because they were still very competitive, almost beat Texas without him. So at least Levitt and Tyson are back, even though Scadaboo's gone.
And they say they may be one of the best duos, passing combination duos in the entire Big 12 this year. So that will benefit them as well. Me personally, for what they did last year, going from 3 wins to winning the conference, this has what John Hardoon, our racehorsing expert analyst, would call bounce, but written all over this football team this year. But what they bring back defies that. So it'd be interesting to see what Arizona State does this season. One of my favorite
win total, by the way, is 8.5, and Vig is to the under.
They're one of the co-favorites in the conference to win at 8.5. You're right, Andy. The Baylor Bears.
All the lines in this conference seem to be between 5.5 and 8.5.
Yes, they are. Nobody higher than 8.5. It's amazing how either parity or neutral this conference is, but nonetheless, somebody from this conference is going to obviously make the playoffs, maybe even 2 teams, and we'll see who emerges. The Baylor Bears are getting a lot of ink this football season here, guys, and this is a football team that I happen to like. The Baylor Bears are coming back well-stocked, as you might imagine here. Number 9 overall in overall returning production, 18 starters back. They're going to take on only 4 opponents that had a winning record last football season here.
Excuse me, one moment, Mark, just to point out to everybody, when you give returning production and say number 9, we're talking with these low single-digit numbers, we're talking nationally, not within the conference. So
That's
you're
right.
already talking about some of these teams in the Arizona State, Baylor, who return a lot from last year, and that points to perhaps we may see the Big 12 be a very powerful conference this year with what they're returning, and that may show itself in the early season interconference games.
Good point, Andy. These are national rankings, if you will, and to rank in the top 10 warrants a long look at that football team. 18 returning starters compose the makeup of that 9th ranking for returning.
You find it interesting, Auburn opened 2.5 on the road at Baylor and down to 1.5, 56.5 total.
Well, I don't find it surprising that the move went to Baylor, Jim. Baylor, there's a lot to like about this football team, but I was a little bit surprised that maybe that it opened up Auburn 2.5. I do know that there's something going on here right now with the program here, and that's going to tie a little bit into BYU. This is a football team here that lost its quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, I should say. He was under sexual abuse allegations. He's been suspended for 7 games, and the rumor is he's transferring out. And the other end of that rumor is he's going to transfer to Baylor. It's kind of a unique and odd situation because Baylor has a good quarterback all unto themselves, and Sawyer
Don't
Robbins.
they have a history of similar type off-the-field issues, Baylor, going back years?
There have been a couple, yeah.
Yeah, there sure have, Andy. Some ugly incidences for sure.
Well, Jake's main issue, because the crime was, she recanted or decided not to press charges. The crime was having sex before marriage, and you can't do that at BYU. And that's why he was suspended 7 games.
Well, that's not a federal crime. That's a policy.
Yeah.
It's a violation of BYU's mandates.
So that's why. So just so everybody understands, he was not suspended 7 games because of something.
And he's not under investigation by the law.
No, he's correct.
That's a big plus.
Yeah.
But as Greg says, he was really because he had sex and he's a Mormon, or he's in a Mormon school, but he's not a Mormon. His faith is he's Jewish by faith, okay, playing at BYU, which is a little bit unusual, but they're not going to tolerate what he did. And obviously he's gone for the BYU football program this football season here. So a lot remains to be seen of what will happen to this team. Their over-under win total is 6.5, but it's heavily juiced to the over. I don't know if it's still juiced that way.
I'm showing 7.5.
Okay, well then when I say juiced,
it was still juiced.
Okay, yeah, okay. Then that's the reason why it's still juiced, and it went up to 7 or 7.5. Still a big, tall number here for me with a team right now in BYU that's really kind of has a few interruptions, if you will. Only 9 starters back for this football team here. They had a nice season last year. I got to put them under the win total here of 7 or 7.5.
Yeah, they only won 5 games in 2023, and that's not normal. I mean, Satake does a really good job coaching there. But yeah, you lose your quarterback at this point in the season, including all the other starters they lost. And I agree with you, Mark. It looks like BYU might be having one of those off seasons. Keep in mind, though, they do have an exciting running back called L.J. Martin. Very good player that will probably be a workhorse now this year. They're going to rely on him a lot, so keep an eye on him.
So
they also happen to have a fairly favorable schedule when you take a look at the teams that they play, that maybe they can still not 11-2 last year, but they could get I think they could get to 8 wins. We got the quarterback issue, but I mean, here's a team that showed tremendous improvement last year, moving into unknown territory, a new conference, playing at when other teams face existing teams that face a BYU, okay, it's one of 3 or 4 teams they have to get familiar with. When BYU and Arizona State come into the conference, they're facing 7 or 8 totally new opponents. For BYU to have the kind of success that they had last year, I think says a lot about the coaching and maybe a little bit about the rest of the conference, at least last year, because maybe last year was let's call it the preparation year for all that returning production that they have throughout the conference this year. So it may be very interesting. BYU may not fall as much as a lot of people think. Haven't made the play yet, but I want to do a little bit more of a look into it, because that 11-2 record is difficult to explain.
Yeah, very difficult to explain. They didn't have a 400-yard offense. Their defense was okay. 309 yards. That's pretty good. But I don't think they're going to catch teams napping this particular football season, and I got to look under the total. Jim, I'm going to ask you for the opening lines and the teams of these games that I see they're playing Portland State, so I don't think we'll waste our time with that.
I'm looking at all the lines I have are up to September 1st.
Okay,
and that's not one of them.
No,
Andy, do you see lines beyond that at all? Because I do.
Are you looking at DraftKings?
Well, I got a million lines up here.
Go to DraftKings.
I will point. Stanford opens at Hawaii. They do have the following week off before they go to BYU. So be aware that even though it looks like, they were just in Hawaii to open the season, they have the following week off. So, if you use that as a handicapping factor, it may not be applicable because of the fact that there's that intervening week.
All right, guys, let's step on it a little bit here. We're going to move over to Colorado. Deion Sanders' team minus Shedeur Sanders, a big loss for the father to the son who's
no Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm skipping myself. Okay. I wanted to hurry, and I hurried too far. Let's do Cincinnati. The Bearcats out to bounce back from a 5-7 season last year. They closed out on a dull note, I guess you'd say, 5 straight losses in a row. That blew their bowl chances. This football program here, I don't know if they belong even in the Big 12. They were brought in upon expansion. They haven't really made a whole lot of noise doing just that. But I'll say this, that after they do have coming in here off consecutive losing seasons, that's the first time since 2016 and 2017. The last time they did that, then they bounced back and went 11-2 the following year. So you're going to look at a football program here with 6 wins for their over-under season win total, which is dead right where it should be, because if they win 6, they'll be bowling. If they don't, they won't. I don't have a whole lot more to say about Cincinnati unless anybody else wants to jump in.
Well, I see them a 6.5-point underdog at home, 49.5. I don't see any movement on the game. But
you're talking about the Nebraska game?
Nebraska 6.5.
Yeah, that's going to be at Arrowhead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it might look like a home game, but it will be at Arrowhead. Yeah, I'm actually surprised the line's only 6.5. Nebraska is clearly a better team than Cincinnati.
A lot
They're
of
also
expectations this year.
They're also in a better conference, and I think this might be it for Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati.
Yeah, it will be if he doesn't win this football season. If he doesn't go
well,
bowling,
when you take a look at his 7-13-2 ATS record, the alumni can't be too happy with not just what's going on in the field, but also going what's on at the candy store.
Okay, let's move over to that Colorado team that I was a little bit premature on here, with Deion Sanders having to do it without Shedeur Sanders, currently involved in that big 4-way quarterback position opening in Cleveland with the Browns. And one day I hear good things about him, the next day I hear bad things about him.
So, yeah, me too. Yeah.
You know, that sounds like Shedeur Sanders.
Yes, it sure does.
That's why he wasn't drafted in the first round.
Continuing to explain why he dropped as far as he did. A lot of this stuff coming out.
Well, they're all about the money, those Sanders boys are. The father just signed a $54 million contract, if you will. It's over $10 million a year to coach Colorado. Come on, man. Colorado.
Wow.
Yeah, we're not talking Alabama or something like that. But he's at least juiced the program, and there is fans in there. A lot of people have been watching this football program, too. Last year they said 54 million people tuned in and watched the Colorado Buffaloes last football season here.
That's why he got paid so much money.
That's right.
Bringing in the eyeballs, and probably their merch is being sold too.
I'm sure it is. 6 wins for their over-under win total here this year. I'm on the fence about that as well. Again, I'm not a big Deion Sanders fan. I don't like the inconsistency, if you will, about his teams. There's never anything consistently good. The offense sputters up and down. The defense, you never know what you're going to get from game to game. But I do have to give them their credit. They did bounce back last year when they needed to do just that.
He is a showman. He opens up.
He took over a team that had gone 1-11, improved to 4-8 his first year, and then more than doubled that win total. So and he was shooting. He could coach below Jackson State. He showed that he could coach at the lower level as well. So not a terrible surprise, other than it was a big step up in class as far as the athletes he was coaching against.
He's a showman.
Yes, he is.
They're opening up a 3.5-point underdog to Georgia Tech in game 1.
Keep an eye on the quarterback, Salter. Very good quarterback over from Liberty. A lot of winning. Good play. Very lucky to have him. But this is going to be interesting to find out how there's two coaches I want to keep an eye on, Indiana and Colorado, because Indiana, we'll talk about them in a few weeks. A lot of transfers that came over from his program. Colorado, same thing. He had all these players, his son, his family that came with him. They're all gone now. So what happens after all of those players that are used to being in his system are gone? How does he now handle that? And that's going to be the interesting thing this season.
He's probably in the right locker room, Greg. And I'll say this because Salter's on record as calling himself one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
I don't know about that. He was a really good group of 5 quarterback. I'm not sure how he's going to do in the Power 4, but again, he is a good quarterback.
Maybe that's what Deion Sanders wants to hear. Who knows?
That's right.
The Houston Cougars come in this year, guys, dead last in the conference last year in scoring. They do take on the easiest schedule in the conference this year, number 15 overall in the country. They've got 18 starters back. They rank number 20 overall in returning production. There's a lot of good things to like about there. And as you guys know, I'm a huge Willie Fritz fan. It's year number 2 for him in Houston. I'm going to look for nice things for him to happen here. He's got an offensive coordinator was gone. He's been replaced now by Slade Nagel. But again, it's all about Willie Fritz in this football program here. The fact that they do have a really good, if you will, soft schedule here, but they have to pick up the offense to juice it. It's 6.5 for the season win total. But with those 18 starters and number 20 overall returning production, I'm going to look for them to win 7 games this year.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
One of those transfers is Casey Wigman, the quarterback, who pretty much was disappointing at Texas A&M. A lot of people thought Texas A&M would be a team to keep an eye on last year, including you and I, Mark. Unfortunately, the quarterback position let him down, including Wigman. So he transfers at Houston. So that's a good opportunity for him. It's interesting taking a look at their depth chart at Ourlads and take a look at all these players in orange. These are all transfers. So these are 5 out of 11 on defense, and then take a look at the offense. Whoa. 9 of 11 projected starters are new on Houston this year.
Well, that's what he had to do, Greg. He's got to shore this defense up, and he went out and did the work. He did just that. So We'll see how good of a job we can grade him for doing it. If he did a good job doing just that, they could be an effective football team. A lot of unknowns about Houston this year, but again, it's all to me about Willie Fritz. Let's talk about Iowa State here. And you talk about one of the best coaches in college football, in my mind. I don't think the guy gets enough credit.
Yeah.
Matt Campbell. He's had 9 consecutive 11-win seasons in a row. That's a bar bet you'd probably win if you ask people to tell you, name to me any of the coaches here that have won 11 games or more 9 years in a row. That's Matt Campbell. He comes in here, did a great job once again last football season here.
He came over with a great reputation at Toledo from the
Toledo,
back.
yes, he did.
Your home area, and continued to carry it over in what had been has been a very competitive Big 12 conference since he's been there.
Exactly right. A little bit light, if you will, returning starter-wise, 13, number 41 overall returning production, 7.5 wins for a season win total. That's rather low for a Matt Campbell-type football team coming off a real good year. But he's got a quarterback on Rocco Becht, who 59 total touchdowns the last 2 years. That's more, or there are only, I should say, 9 other quarterbacks in the entire conference that have that many as Rocco Becht does. I'm going to take a long look at Iowa State, especially in underdog roles. I love Matt Campbell when he dresses up as an underdog. Whenever I play on his team, I also play on the money line as well, because when he wins as a dog and covers as a dog, he usually wins the game.
What was that trend you said again?
Kansas State looks like a 3.5-point favorite in this game.
Oh, that one is in, by the way,
game's in
Dublin,
Ireland.
Ireland. Yeah, and that'll be the first game of the season. So that kicks off, I think, maybe on a Thursday,
Saturday. It's a Saturday. Early Saturday.
It's Saturday is the 23rd.
Okay, so that must be what, the third Saturday then in August. So it's the first game of the season. So yeah, that should be a good one, especially when it's a conference game in the first game of the season. Which
by the way, they come back the following week and face South Dakota. There are lines
as
now
well. They
on
should.
Now they have lines on games between FCS and FBS teams, so they'll probably be a huge favorite. We want to take a look and see what the line is. It'll probably be a very large number. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the 20s or something along those lines. Might they have a letdown? Because they also have the following week, they host Iowa. So it could be a
what
very
was that
flat
stat
spot
that
week
you said,
too.
Mark?
About what's that, Greg?
Iowa State, Campbell.
Matt Campbell?
Yeah, that stat, that trend that you said.
9 11-win seasons in a row?
9-11 win seasons in a row?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not right. There's something.
No,
there's gotta be something
2022 they had a bad year.
Yeah, it's got to be something else.
Well,
yeah, just double check that.
I'll
It's
double
probably
check
something else.
It may be 9 overall 11-win seasons. Maybe
That's probably it.
Maybe
Okay,
even dating back to Toledo. So
that'll be it. Okay.
Yeah.
probably had a little bit of an adjective in there, a little bit of a.
I just wanted to check that. Yeah, 9-11 win seasons. He'd be coaching the NFL. That's for sure. I'm surprised he's in coaching in the NFL right now. That's a
forget that
surprise.
bar bet, guys, that I just talked about. Just forget it. Just toss it right out. The Big 12 is really loaded with good head coaches.
Either that or make the bet with someone who you've just supplied with 5 drinks.
That's a real bar bet. I said the Big 12 has a lot of really good head coaches. Lance Leipold from Kansas is just one of those. He's really turned this program around on its ear. Here's a football team that comes in here. Leipold had never had a winning season after a losing season. He's coming in off of a losing season here. Will he not have a winning season this year? The only one team he had that did have a winning season after a losing season was Wisconsin Whitewater, a Division III football team where he went 15-0, and that's what elevated him to the status that he's at here right now. So he's going to have to do something this year that he hasn't done with Kansas, and that's to bounce back off of a losing football season. But it's all going to be about Jalen Daniels, their 6th-year quarterback. He had a knee injury last football season. It cost him dearly. He was a little bit wobbly in spring practice this year. He started 33 football games. He's missed time in both 22 and 23 with that same knee. So they're going to go as far as Jalen Daniels takes his football program here. They've got this football team here now with 7 wins. That might be a little bit advantageous for Kansas, not knowing the situation with Daniels. And if I'm a guy that wants to rely on healthy quarterbacks, I'd probably pass on that total with this football team because you don't know about Daniels.
14-point favorite in game 1 against Fresno, 52-51 total.
Well, again, that's a pretty healthy number. But I think
we know he's a good coach because he got this job with the job that he did turning around a Buffalo program, which since he left has gone down.
Yes, exactly right. Good point, Andy. You know, he resurrected that team. He's resurrected this team. We'll see whether or not it continues this year. Look at his, if you will, his kissing cousin in the state again, Kansas State. Chris Kleiman, another great head coach. He's had 5 of 6 teams that he's had at the FBS level here have won 8 or more games. He's got a season win total of 8.5 this year. He's a co-favorite to win the Big 12 once again this football season here.
By the way, each of the last 3 seasons, 9-4, 9-4, 10-4. Now that includes bowl games. Of course, the regular season wins don't. Bet doesn't include that. So now it's down to 8.5. And once again, Mark, he doesn't have maybe a lot of starters coming back, but look where he ranks returning production. And you mentioned the quarterback.
Yeah, number 14 overall. And he went out and he got 14 transfers, 7 on each side of the football coming into this football season here. A very, very good head coach. He won't get out-coached too many times. Kleiman, I should say, in this particular role. I don't know about any team getting 9 wins this season here, because this is a conference that not only has a lot of parity. Parity means if they're what they say they are, they're going to be knocking each other off with regularity. So who will withstand all that? The question is going to be who, if anybody, will win 9 games inside this Big 12 conference here. Kansas State is one of those co-favorites.
They have a quarterback, Avery Johnson, that I really expected would have taken off a little bit more last year, because he did start his freshman season, his true freshman season. He's got a load of talent. So maybe there is another gear there that we all expected out of him. So keep an eye on Avery Johnson, because if he can have that type of breakout year and become one of the top players in the conference, and obviously they're going to have a much better team than people think.
Well, the biggest question mark of all what happened, like the WTF team of all of college football last year, had to be Oklahoma State. They were a team that came back last year just loaded to the gills with returning starters, number 3 overall in that particular mark. Tons of returning starters in production, as I mentioned here. And they dropped an egg last football season here. They become a mission team. I mentioned earlier, they had gone bowling 18 years in a row. They lost last year. That makes them a viable mission team.
And they started 3-0 last year.
On top of it. So what happened to that football program here? I mean, the chef probably got fired because he served up a bad meal and they just couldn't get it out of him all football season long. I couldn't get over. They had Ollie Gordon, didn't they, Andy? Also, the running back. He was like first team All-American or something going into the season.
Yeah, and they returned what? You showed that last year. They returned 10 starters.
Yep.
On offense, 9 on defense, which is like unheard of, especially with transfer portals going in. Although, again, maybe last year part of that included. Although portal transfer, I don't think was as active 2 years ago as it was last year, prior to this season.
And they're going to be playing at Oregon week 2. So we're going to find out about Oklahoma State. And they also going to be a young quarterback that either way, whoever is the quarterback is going to be a young, inexperienced quarterback. So it could be another long season. I venture to think that if it's another bad year for Mike Gundy, since it's year 21, I'm not sure whether or not there'll be a year 22 for him.
Well, I don't think they'll pink slip him. He may voluntarily step down. He's just been legendary.
He was also the quarterback there before he was the head coach.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Very, very thin, as mentioned, Greg, on returning production here. Number 90. That's not good overall in returning production.
Well, it might be for a team that went 3-9.
Yeah, you get rid of.
Might not be a bad thing.
No, it might end up being a good thing.
Maybe there were some problem issues that have never come to the surface, because there's no explaining how a team with that talent would lose 9 straight games.
But they did. But keep an eye on Oklahoma State. They're a football team.
Yep.
Even despite the fact that they're light on returning starters, it's a 5.5 win total here, and I'll be stunned if this mission team is not back in a bowl game this year. And if I'm right on that, you can go over that 5.5 win total.
I'm definitely going over that total. I mean, you just go back. 18 years in bowl games. That means that's 18 years of 6-6 or 7-6 or better. Guy can coach.
Yes, he can coach.
And coming off of that 3-9 season, the way they started, he was probably working 18-hour days during the offseason.
I would call this a major reverse bounce team this football season here for where they plummeted to last year and where they can get back to this year.
Big 10 or Big 12 title between 3,000 and 5,500 to win the title.
Wow. To win the Big 12 title?
Yeah.
Well, with all the parity, Jim, to that I could say you got to take a stab at that. That's a nice price.
I got $50 on that. I'll put it on. I didn't, but I will.
But somehow your $50 isn't the same as my $50, Jim. That's what I know.
Mark, where does he stand tenure-wise, 21st year? Ferentz, I believe, is what, 27, 28?
Yeah, he's got to be knocking right at Kirk Ferentz's
He's got to be
door
right
here.
there, certainly top 5, if not number 2.
He certainly does, Andy. That's a good question.
Which, by the way, also shows a tremendous amount of loyalty, because a guy who has that kind of success probably had entertained offers from the NFL, or from maybe going.
How old is Mike Gundy?
He's got to be probably
he's not an old guy.
50s.
Yeah, he's not an
mid-late
old
50s
guy.
at that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
mean,
I remember when he was a quarterback.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. When he was quarterbacking. Let's go over to TCU, guys, the football program that made some noise a little while back. Then they got demolished in the college football playoffs, but slowly fighting their way back. They were the number 2 best defense in the Big 12 last football season here. Only 15 starters back, number 31 overall in returning production. Those are okay numbers. There's nothing to really diss about that. But it's been a wild ride for this football program here. 7 years of alternating winning season, losing season, winning season, losing season. 7 years in a row doing just that. So, we're going to find out what they've got on tap here this year.
Well, the thing with that, by the way, Mark, is this is only his 4th year, Sonny Dykes. So he took over after one of those losing seasons, got him in that first season into the championship game, went to 5-7 the following year, bounced back 9-4 last year. So I would say that pattern may end, given the success that the coach had, Sonny Dykes, prior to coming here, and what he's done at TCU, taking over a program that had not performed well the year before.
He also had the Big 12's best rated recruiting class coming in here too. So, everything changes, and this program might have that change written all over it. The team I like the most inside the conference this year is Texas Tech, the Red Raiders, coming into this football season here. This is a football team that has the most returning starters of any team in the nation. 21 returning starters coming back, number 6 overall in returning production. They got a quarterback. I call him Red Baron Morton. He's a quarterback. He was 4-6 as a starter. In 2 years, 14-6, I should say. I can't read my notes. 14-6 as a starter the last 2 years. Over 6,000 passing yards, 56 touchdowns. With all this experience coming back here, and I also, when I was reading about the wild world of college football and paying these players and what they're allowed to do and how it's just completely out of control, I come across the fact that Texas Tech laid out as much money this year as just about any team in all of college football did to bring all of this talent into this program. So not only are they strong with returning production here, they're really deep with what they brought into the transfer portal. You talk to Conley, you talk to Steele, that all equates into these numbers I'm talking about. But they're about as deep as any team can be inside this conference here. And I've got them to win the Big 12.
Now, Morton comes back as the quarterback, correct?
Yes, he does.
And they get a big boost from all the writers talking about the Texas Tech offensive line being very improved.
Well, that certainly doesn't hurt when you've got a quarterback like Morton, who's shown he's got the ability here. 20 starts, 14 wins, over 6,000 passing yards. That's a pretty strong number here with all that support. I'll be surprised if they're not in the Big 12 championship.
Let me ask you and Jim this question, because we talk about value and we talk about betting numbers that really may not make sense, even though they seem to be justified by the projections. Texas Tech has not won more than 8 games, I think, in over a decade. Their season win total is 8.5, with VIG on the over. Is that asking an awful lot, despite the returning and the balance of the conference, to do something that you haven't been able to do in over a decade?
It is, Andy, but you also have to look at the circumstances. Look at what we're talking about, how well stocked this football team is here this year. Now, can they live up to that expectation? That's the question, okay?
Well, by the way, the other thing is, we've already talked about a number of these teams in the conference who are also very well stocked in terms of returning production.
Exactly right.
They're going to be playing teams that may not be quite as stocked, but you're asking a team to win 9 games in a conference that appears to be clearly stronger and returning a lot of production from last season. I'm not saying that they won't win 9 or 10 games, but I'm saying asking them to go over a number 8.5 where they haven't done it in over a decade. Even though I love the coach McGuire, that to me it doesn't seem like it's a great bet, given the parity within the conference and the fact that, and related to that, the fact that the many other teams in the conference also return an awful lot. Can you see 4 losses on their schedule, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, the first thing you have to do when you ask a question like the entity is go look at their road games. Where are they? They're at Utah, they're at Houston, they're at Arizona State, at Kansas State, and at West Virginia. Put a blanket over all those teams. They're all just about the same parity-wise, which is what the Big 12 is all about. Yeah. So from those 5 road games, can they win 3? That's the question. If they
Mark, on a national basis outside the conference, do the best teams in this conference stand up to the best teams in the nation?
No. Okay. And that's why the season win total 8.5 is the highest, because
keep in mind we didn't think so last year, and then Arizona State almost made it into the championship game.
Yeah, look at the rules they changed the preseason polls, for something like that.
I think Andy's point though is the one that I'm the most concerned with Texas Tech is not just it's mostly not just 10 years or whatever the time has been since they went over 8 games, but just even this group here and all of the attention that will be brought upon it after they get off to a quick start, because their schedule is pretty simple early on. And can they deal with those expectations? I don't know. I don't know. I actually myself would bet against it. But as Andy said, I like McGuire. There's talent on this team. They have a veteran quarterback. There's some good things to like, but to bet your own money that they're going to do something they haven't done and all that pressure that will be on them to do that, that's something I'm not sure they can do. But hey, it is the Big 12, and I think that's an advantage because like what happened last year, anything can happen when you have teams that were predicted to be the last 2 place teams in the conference go all the way to the top. Then that means it's a wide open conference, and that means it go ahead.
Mark, one thing, and that is, you probably have these records. But one thing I'm looking at when I'm looking at Texas Tech's schedule is I'm looking to perhaps make my a play on them in their 4th game of the season at Utah. Now, this is something that you probably track how teams do when they open with, say, their first 3 or 4 games at home and take to the road for the first time. And that's what the situation with Texas Tech is, especially because they've got 2 gimme wins against Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and Kent State at home the first season, and then a home game against an Oregon State team that they'll be solid favorites against, but it's still going up against much better competition than they're facing in their first 2 games. And then they're going on the road.
They play in North Carolina. They opened a 1.5 point favorite, went to a 3-point favorite, and then reversed. Now North Carolina's 2.5.
You're talking about the TCU game,
yes.
Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We actually didn't even bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good first matchup, the TCU at North Carolina matchup.
Yeah, Belichick.
Yeah,
well, guys, if I'm introducing Texas Tech at the Big 12 press conference, the first thought that comes to my mind is one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite country singers about Texas Tech and their theme, and it would be "We've Never Been This Far Before" by Conway Twitty. And that's what you're talking about with this win total with this football program here. They've never been this far before. So Andy brings out a really valid point. Can they get over the hump? But I'm going to vote with Conway Twitty and say, yes, they can. They'll go that far this particular year. Guys, we got to get a couple more teams in here and just 3 teams in 3 minutes. Let's see if we can put the pedal to the metal. Next guy on tap here is Central Florida, UCF. And it's the return of the prodigal son coming back here. Scott Frost goes back to UCF after making the disastrous move over to Nebraska, which was obviously the football program that he started at, but couldn't reignite that football program here. He led Central Florida to a 13-0 season back in 2017, which obviously is the reason these fans are enamored having him come back here. He's rebooted the roster with 25 transfers coming in this year, only 10 returning starters, number 93 overall in returning production. They've got just 5.5 wins for their season win total. It's going to be all about whether the team catches Scott Frost fever this year or not.
I don't like the quarterback position. I hope they have someone else in mind other than Taven Jackson, but it's his first year. And as you can see, like you said, Mark, with all these players in orange, there is an awful lot of new players that are not only going to be new to the team and to the surroundings, but even though Scott Frost used to coach there, he's back there kind of new, hadn't been there in a while. So it's too much newness to expect anything to happen this year. which I'm not really surprised that most people expect him to kind of get off to a sluggish start in year one. But I think it's a good thing. I like to see these coaches who have coached with success before at these types of programs to come back again. And I think it's good for college football.
Well, it's been just about nothing but downhill for Frost since that 13-0 season that I alluded to, and that's the reason he's bouncing back like
Any
he
thought
is.
on the 5.5 win total, Mark?
Well, it's again whether or not the team is going to become enamored with Scott Frost here. I don't see enough returning production coming back here. I would, if I put a gun to my head, I'm going to say no. I don't think they get 6 wins this football season. Okay, let's move over to Utah. The Utes played really, really good football, largely because of their head coach, Kyle Whittingham, who is tied for the most bowl wins by any active coach. He's been around, he's been there, he's done just that. They started 4-0 last football season before they ended up with 7 straight losses. That's really un-Whittingham-like to do something like that. But he brings 17 starters back, number 17 overall in returning production. Look out, that's a good number for Whittingham.
Is that the other mission team?
No, they're not. They're not the other mission team.
But they had been bowls, I think, to the previous 3 years.
Yes, they are, Andy.
Yeah.
In fact, you're correct. They are the other mission team. They are indeed the other mission team. Good call on your part. They are.
And by the way, that streak snapped a lengthy streak before that, because remember, the 2020 was the COVID season. They didn't go bowling there. They only played 5 games. But you go back 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 11, every other year that's in your book here. So it's 9 out of 10 years, or I'm sorry, 8 out of 10 years that they've been. 8 out of 9 years they went to bowl games before missing out last year.
So you sprinkle a little mission team dust on Utah this year with Kyle Whittingham, with a lot of production coming back here.
Yep.
They're going to be challenging for the Big 12 Conference Championship. I'm sure they will this football season.
And by the way, that he also 21st season, we remarked about that with Gundy and Utah, veteran coaches coming back off of lost seasons and meeting your qualifications of a mission team.
3.5-point favorite at UCLA, 50.5 the total.
Wow. They didn't fall asleep on this football team.
Showing an awful lot of respect.
Yes, it sure is.
Understandably so.
And they might have a New Mexico quarterback this year, which would be crazy, but because he's one of the guys that's fighting for the job. He transferred over from New Mexico. A running quarterback, too, which is kind of surprising. He had over 1,100 yards and I think like 19 rushing touchdowns last year, but he only threw for I think it was 14 touchdowns and 14 picks, or 12-12. So I don't know. The quarterback situation doesn't look very good at Utah, and that's what's really held them back the last couple of years. All the injuries, things of that nature. Rising couldn't get healthy. This is a big year for Whittingham, because a lot of people thought that Whittingham might step down after last year. How things, maybe it's time to move on. So another longtime coach that needs to have a good season, or else maybe it will be his last.
Well, 5-7 last year, following wins of 8, 10, and 10. Same veteran coach the 3 preceding years. So Mark, you put it right there. I think a lot of similarities between Utah and Okie State, and this win total on Utah 7.5, slight vig to the over.
Napier they ran for threw for 2,700 yards, ran for 1,166, 19 touchdowns last year at New Mexico. So that's a big. If he comes in there and plays like that, he can be tough.
Well, Cam Rising, you mentioned it before, Andy. He could have come back. I believe he's played 7 years. My goodness, and he could have come back for number 8 this year, but he decided to hang it up because of the injuries. Yeah. And all I can say to that is thank goodness, and smart decision, Cam Rising, because you want to be able to walk on 2 legs
while you're still in your 30s.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Let's get over to Rich Rod, West Virginia here. Rich Rod has won 12 conference championships in his career. He's coming back home to West Virginia. The natives are really, really excited to have him there. When he was there, he went 60-26. So you understand why they're all excited. They're also very light on returning starters. 11 overall, number 80 in the nation. They've got just 5 wins for a season win total here. It's all going to be about however Rich Rod impresses this football program here. He doesn't have a lot to work with here in a conference that's mediocre, meaning that most of the other teams are better than he is. I don't think he's going to be bowling this year.
Look at all the players in color on the depth chart. It's like everybody's almost in color. It's like 90% of the players are either freshmen or transfers on both offense and defense. I don't think there's a team in college football that has this much turnover. But I will say I agree with those Mountaineer fans. I think this is great for college football. Like I said with Frost, this one's even better. I think this is where he belongs. He should never have left. He left just like Frost did because he couldn't say no. But he's back where he belongs, and I suspect in a short period of time he's going to have West Virginia back at the top of the Big 12.
Do you recall, Mark, how long it took him to get when he was at Tulane to have that undefeated season?
I don't know.
Early in his tenure.
No, that would be early, and it wouldn't show in the magazine on their page.
Yeah, right.
It only goes back 10 years.
I was saying, I think it was in the aughts.
But the thing I want to allude to here, guys, and maybe I don't want to go off on a little bit of a college football political rant, but one of the things that the NIL has done and ruined the game, one of my favorite and best handicapping edges was always to look at college football programs who started in abundance of freshmen and sophomores. And then you look at them, their junior and senior years, they're going to their junior and senior years. They were very experienced football teams, and they held huge edges over other teams. We don't get that anymore because when they're gone, all they do is pony up more money and bring in another player. So that's another tear-jerk story for me and what this NIL has done to the world of college football.
See, that's what it's done.
That's what it's done.
Yeah.
It's ruined it. All right, guys.
I thought that was showing the end of the podcast because we were at exactly 1 hour.
That's
it
true.
cut in or something like that, but you're appropriate for your comment. Absolutely.
But I had to sneak that in. So, guys, we got that Big 12 in here this week. Next week, we're going to hop over to the Big 10. Some people think that might be the best of all the Power 4 conferences. The SEC.
I know someone who does.
Back-to-back championships from the Big 10. SEC who?
Yeah.
Yeah, SEC who? And
SEC is now basketball.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That leaves the ACC out cold in both sports. The one question I'm going to ask next week, though, and we'll blow it here, is if you asked anybody, this might be a good bar bet you can make here. Ohio State won the national championship. Who was the defending Big 10 champion? It wasn't Ohio State. It was Oregon.
No. Yeah.
It was Oregon.
Well, I was saying it wasn't Michigan either.
And it's going to be those same. It's going to be Oregon again, Ohio State, and then Penn State. The same, basically 3 teams because it was Penn State, Oregon in the championship game. Ohio State won the national championship, and all 3 of those teams are the top 3 teams to beat again in the Big 10.
And unfortunately for your Ohio State fans, if they have the kind of season they had like last year, they won't be seated number 9.
No, they will not be seated.
They'll be much higher than that.
That way this year. Just a quick note here, guys, that we're talking about, we're going to be making available this year a football contest, Beat the Pros contest here on ProLine TV. Our listeners will be able to participate in the contest. There'll be more information forthcoming on just that. If you're new to ProLine TV, I encourage you to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell because it'll be good for everybody. You'll be well kept informed this football season. Until next week, that's going to put the wraps on this edition of Mark Lawrence Against the Spread. I want to welcome our co-host, Jim Feist, the legend himself in Las Vegas, Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com, also in Las Vegas, and our co-host, producer, Greg DePalma. For all the guys, this is Mark Lawrence, reminding you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.